It is upon us. We've spent the last 4 or 5 weeks talking about it. It is finally here. We've got one more position group to preview for you today as we talk tight ends and wrap up our coverage before our live NFL draft episode on Thursday, where we bring you all of our reactions for things we do and don't know about during the first round of the NFL draft. I am your host at Hop BFF, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. That's Hop with 2 P's. Joined, as always, from Springfield, Illinois, via the wonders of technology, Dan Thury at Thury BFF. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. It's a day off for me. I ran a bunch of errands, got my hair cut. If you guys can see in the video, I don't look like a shaggy homeless person. So I'm happy. Katrina's happy.
We're all happy.
We're all happy.
We got Easter this week. I got to eat a metric shitload of food. It's going to be a good time. Speaking of good times, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into the beer review or beer preview. I think that's a host thing. I think Nick passed that on to me.
No, I blame Nick.
Yeah, I blame Nick also. I can't get the difference between review and preview right. We're going to jump straight into fueling the field here because we've got some things that I'm quite excited about.
What's fueling Beer Fueled?
All right, Dan, you've got something that I read about online this morning that absolutely just made me like, wow, I've got to try that. And it seems like this brewery is doing just something good every other week these days.
So we got Grandma's Fruit Salad from Triptych. It is a milkshake IPA, lactose, vanilla, tangerine, pineapple, and peach. I'll let you know how it is because it's going to be, from the first couple sips, I'm already excited for the beer review.
Awesome. That is Grandma's Fruit Salad from Triptych out of Savoy, Illinois. As for me, I have something that is new to the bourbon world. So for those of you that don't know or have been absent the last few weeks, we're not keeping this strictly to beer. I do like my bourbon. I have a New Riff single barrel sour mash bourbon from New Riff Distillery out of Newport, Kentucky. New Riff is a new kid on the block. This is the first thing that they've put out that is not sourced bourbon. This is their own stuff. So picked it up a couple weeks ago. I'm going to go ahead and give the new kid on the block a try, and we will let you know what I think about it about midway through the episode. That being said, we're both excited about our booze. Let's go ahead and get to the less exciting news.
News.
All right. Starting off with just regular old news. Julio Jones did not report for the start of the team's offseason programs in the midst of a contract discussion. Not quite a full-blown dispute yet. He does plan to participate in voluntary minicamp in June. Any concerns about this turning into a Lev Bell situation? Because I don't have them.
No, it just doesn't seem something that Julio would do. I mean, we got like with the Lev Bell thing from last year, that was, added on from the issues in 2016 and 17 when he wanted a contract extension and they didn't give him one. This one seems like they're going to probably get it done now that Odell has had his money and some of the other receivers have been paid. No, the market's been set for Julio, and I expect him to get what he deserves.
I think he will too, and if he's trying to prove a point here, it's kind of a weird flex to say, hey, I'm not going to show up for the voluntary stuff, but you bet you dag nabbit I'm going to be there when the stuff I have to be there for happens. I'm not worried here. I laugh because it's a kicker, but we got a kicker money dispute. 49ers kicker Robbie Gould was absent from day one of the team's offseason program. It's widely believed that he does not want to play on a franchise tag and does not want to sign a long-term deal in San Francisco.
Oh, my God.
Real weird flex for a kicker.
I mean, Lev Bell didn't play a season. Maybe Robbie Gould, it's like, fuck this. I don't want to kick for you guys.
I don't want to kick for San Francisco. Send me elsewhere.
Yeah.
And Leonard Fournette is not going to face team discipline stemming from his arrest last week. So good news. The NFL still doesn't care about anything other than domestic violence or marijuana.
Yeah.
And from the world of Dallas is going to pick up Zeke's fifth-year option.
Duh.
All right. On to signings. Seattle signed quarterback Russell Wilson to a 4-year, $140 million extension through 2023. There is a belief that his year-to-year salary is actually tied to the salary cap. Now, whether it goes up as the salary cap goes up or to keep it as a percentage, I don't know. But either way, it seems like he's once again got Seattle hamstrung. He's like the anti-Tom Brady who constantly restructures his salary to get players around him.
I mean, they're not going to use him properly. You might as well try to get as much money out of the organization as you possibly can. This makes no sense to me because it's Russell Wilson. Yes, he's fantastic. And yes, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But they're a run-first team that wants to go back to the ways of how they won their Super Bowl the last time in 2014 when it was on the soul of Marshawn Lynch and that defense. So why would you make Russell Wilson the highest-paid quarterback in the history of the NFL for the time being? It just... Okay.
I think what it boils down to is when you need your quarterback, Russell Wilson's been really, really good at it. I mean, look at the touchdown rate. When you need your quarterback to come through and make a play, other than from the 1-yard line, he's pretty much done it.
I mean, he is insane, but it's just from a scheme and everything else standpoint, it just didn't make much sense.
No, it doesn't.
I hope for the sake of all my Dynasty Wilson shares that they decide to let him throw the ball 600 times because why else would you pay somebody that much?
Right. If you're going to run, then you need to have money to dump into the defense and the offensive line and, running backs. But, running backs are a dime a dozen. Speaking of a dime a dozen, that's pretty much what they paid J.D. McKissick. He's back on a 1-year, $720,000 contract, and a wide receiver, David Moore, on a 1-year, $640,000 contract. They're both exclusive rights free agents, so not really going anywhere.
No. And they're both good depth pieces. We got to see both of them kind of flash a little bit at times over the last couple years.
Yep. Eagles signed quarterback Nate Sudfeld to a 1-year, $3.095 million contract. He's largely expected to be Wentz's backup, which means he'll probably start at least 3 games.
Probably.
The Colts signed wide receiver Chester Rogers to the exact same deal the Eagles signed Nate Sudfeld to.
He knows the offense.
Yeah, he knows the offense. There's a number 3 opening in Indy, so we'll see. He'll be in the mix for that. The Patriots signed wide receiver Demaryius Thomas to a 1-year contract coming off of a torn Achilles. I
believe it's for $6 million. I don't see how he's going to even be able to be ready in time. He tore the Achilles late into the season.
Yep, it was late into the season that he tore it. I don't know how bad it was. I don't know if it was a complete rupture or if it was just a slight tear, but I don't expect him to be 100% next season, and I don't really expect him to be worth a damn ever again.
Yep. Exactly.
But if somebody's hyped about him, please sell.
Yeah.
Because there's always that one masshole. The Ravens signed Gus Edwards to a 1-year deal. He was also exclusive rights free agent, so it's a formality. And then... Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. No, we're good.
Okay, I was just going to keep moving. I don't want to talk about Gus Edwards. I don't like him.
I know.
The Chargers signed wide receiver Travis Benjamin to a 1-year extension through the 2020 season. Depth, but you figure that he might see a little bit more without Tyrell Williams there. There's also the option that Dylan Cantrell steps up, but there is going to be some vacated targets. But then again, Hunter Henry's also back. He's probably going to take all those.
Yes.
In injury news, Carson Wentz, his back is not yet fully healed. He's not participating in voluntary workouts, but he does plan to be ready for OTAs. I'm not worried about him missing time at the beginning of the season yet, and that's going to be the same for these next couple of guys as well. It's just too early to be freaking out about that.
You got to treat it like last year.
Yeah.
You just keep waiting for news and updates on what his health is.
Yep. Now, if this is still the case when we get to training camp, then you're going to be concerned.
Yep.
Travis Kelce is yet to be cleared to practice and is unsure of his timetable after an offseason ankle cleanup procedure.
He's got to be. He'll for sure be ready, at least for the start of the season. He's been in that offense long enough where he probably wouldn't even need to play in the preseason for anything else.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think he's ready by preseason if it was just a cleanup procedure.
True.
Delaney Walker remains without a timeline following last season's ankle injury. The goal for him is training camp, so he's still not ready to go.
Jonnu Smith season.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. They're bringing Walker along slow. I mean, this was not a late season injury either. So
I know. We'll see.
Yep. No timetable for Doug Baldwin to return after he had surgery on literally everything.
The whole body.
Yeah, it was an entire body surgery. It was like
Jesus.
knee, shoulder, sports hernia, got his tubes tied. Pretty sure there's a vasectomy in there.
He got his third ear removed. I don't know.
Third ear removed. Cameron Brate, he's cleared to return to football activities following off-season hip surgery, so good for him to sit behind O.J. Howard.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp still on track to be ready for week 1. This was the same update we had a couple weeks ago, so good news for Cooper Kupp owners.
Yep.
Hunter Henry's a full go.
Yay.
Corey Clement, Will Fuller, both expected to be ready for week 1.
Don't care about Clement. Totally care about Fuller, though.
Yeah, Fuller being ready for week 1 is good news. He'll be hurt again by week 5, but
that's fine. We'll get like 2 wide receiver 1 finishes in 5 weeks.
We'll worry about that when it comes.
Yep.
And then Zach Miller retired. So officially now.
Officially.
Yep. After his leg pinwheeled and he almost lost it, and the Bears kept him on the roster to get back. Now he is retired. He's not going to try to make a comeback, which is probably for the better.
Probably.
All right. So now that we got through all that and just burned that page and a half of news real quick, we're going to go ahead and jump into a new segment that I like to call the LOL News of the Week. This is not really news. This is the coach speak or player speak stuff that is so off base and lack of self-awareness that it's hilarious.
Laugh out loud news of the week.
Each week we'll be bringing you 2 to 3 items that fit this category. We have 2 for you this week. Joe Flacco has stated there's no need for the Broncos to draft a quarterback.
Very fitting.
So first off, who's the idiot reporter that decided to ask the team starting quarterback if he thought Denver needed to draft a quarterback of the future?
It was probably John Elway just like reassuring to himself that, you know what, Flacco's the perfect mold of a QB that we want in this team, or that I want in this team.
It was Flacco.
So I just want to make sure the whole world knows that.
It was Flacco that said it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Elway whispered into his ear, just like
whispered sweet nothings into his ear. John Elway is talking sweet to Joe Flacco.
That's
and
right.
Lack of self-awareness for Flacco, who hasn't been good since, well, really ever. So, this is almost as bad as Giants GM Dave Gettleman, who believes Eli Manning proved he has plenty left in the tank last season.
I believe he said he thinks he can play until 2023. I'm just like, the fuck do you think is good? Like,
four more years of Eli Manning.
Jones too. I want them to be the team that said they have Daniel Jones as a number 1 on their team.
I hope so.
Because
Gettleman might be the worst GM that exists. Eli's come out and said he fully expects the Giants to draft a quarterback. And quite honestly, how can you come out and say, I think this guy's got a lot left? He had Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, and still couldn't generate any offense that wasn't run through Barkley.
Like, I think Eli Manning like secretly hates the Giants because all he has to do to like start this rebuild is just retire. Just be like, you know what? I won you guys 2 Super Bowls. Obviously, you don't want to get rid of me, but I obviously need to go because he clearly thinks the Giants should draft a quarterback and just ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
Good for Eli for having some self-awareness because nobody else in that organization does.
Right?
They're running to another Super Bowl with Eli Manning. All right, let's get into some happier stuff. Tight ends.
Yay.
Draft preview.
All right, it's our last positional group. So this is what I believe to be the second deepest skill position in the draft. We're going to talk about the tight ends. We're just going to go through our top 12 because, well, outside of the first 12, there's not really anything worth it. And at least from a fantasy perspective, from what we can tell, I know we said it was deep, but I mean, we say deep for a tight end class. It's not really held to the same standards as the running back or the wide receiver class. This is a class, though, where instead of the 3 to 4 guys that could be starters you've had the last 2 years, you've got a solid 6 to 7 that could end up being relevant.
it's not even really top. It's top. I want the top 5. I want my top 5, which is the same as your top 5, thankfully.
Yep, just in a
And
slightly
then after
different
that,
order.
I just want dart throws guys who are athletic enough to maybe be something more than just a blocking tight end or show more than the production they put up in college.
Yep, and there are a few of those. There's 5 guys that
Yes.
we think are consensus for us. They're just in a slightly different order that we think are pretty much locks. And then beyond that, there's some guys that have injury concerns or that may not be good blockers or may have some other red flags with them. And then there's, as we get towards the end, there's just some guys that maybe flashed it a little bit, but probably aren't really going to do it. So let's go ahead and start though with the guys that have traded off the consensus number 1 tight end spot all off season. They play for the same team. Let's start with TJ Hawkinson, and then we'll move into Noah Fant.
I love TJ Hawkinson. Like when you look at him and Fant, this is pretty much like OJ Howard and George Kittle, or somewhere along those similarities where they're two just very athletic guys who are able to get it done while playing with each other on the same offense. Hawkinson was able to take over Fant as the tight end 1 in that team last year, and really showed it even more so this year. Like I said, he was a lot like George Kittle was in the same offense only a couple years ago, and he is the most balanced. He's the most ready. He's going to be the first tight end likely drafted, so the draft capital will of course be there. He has a good chance to even be a guy who can be productive in year 1. He had the second highest receiving grade per PFF in this class at 90.8. He had a 2% drop rate on catchable targets in his final season and just 2 drops in his career. So he's a guy that can get it done. He's just, there's not a lot to dislike about him. I don't even know if there is anything to really dislike about him.
Nope. He was an easy person on tape that you could have misdiagnosed, like I think at least Nick did Kittle in year 1, which was that he may have been more of a blocker because he played mostly in line. So if you are going to knock him for something, it's that he didn't play a lot of in the slot or outside. He did run a lot of in line, and that's because they had Noah Fant. Noah Fant was the one splitting outside. Noah Fant was the running in the slot. TJ Hawkinson was a much better blocker, so he was staying in to block more than Fant was. Generally running fewer routes, and when he was running routes, he was more running them as an inline tight end. That was really the only thing I noticed. It might be a little bit of a learning curve, but other than that, he's got my ball mentality, great body position. He's strong enough to carry defenders. He's fluid in his routes, quick game speed, seals lanes very, very well for runners. There's not a whole lot to not like about TJ Hawkinson, and to me, he is or should be the number 1 because blocking is what's going to get him on the field. It's what got Kittle on the field his rookie year, and there's a lot of similarities.
He might be the most complete tight end prospect. Then our short 3 years of scouting. I mean, we're not experts by any stretch, but he's easily, like, he should be, at least a Kyle Rudolph, Jack Doyle-esque ish, maybe, a guy that's going to, be a fantasy producer regardless of the offense that he's in, just because of how good of a player that he is.
It's a lazy comparison, but I really do see George Kittle there, especially with how they played in college.
Yeah,
not quite as athletic though.
I don't think it's lazy. George Kittle is insanely athletic, and Hawkinson is not. I mean, he's not to that degree. He had a 7.023 cone, 37.5 inch vertical, 123 inch broad. The guy's got burst. The guy's got short area quickness. He posted a 4.18, the highest in the class, or the second highest in the class. So there's a lot to love about Hawkinson from both a film and a advanced stats and measurable standpoint.
There absolutely is. Now, if we talk about Hawkinson, we got to talk about the other guy who did test insanely athletic. I see more of a Jordan Reed comparison, though, for Noah Fant.
Yeah, I mean, he was their main guy. Like, he was the main guy people talked about coming into the season. He tested even better than I expected he was going to. He tested the same way George Kittle tested. If you go on playerprofiler.com, shout out to those guys. His best comparable is to George Kittle. He basically Mike Gesicki this combine, which he pretty much destroyed it. For him, is he was still able to produce even with TJ Hawkinson there, 25% DM rating right around there, which is still very good for a tight end. He had a good looking breakout age. He's slightly underrated as a blocker. I think he just wasn't asked to do it a lot because you didn't need to. They have a great offensive line, They have one of the best blocking tight ends in Hawkinson in there as well. His issue is drops. He had 11 drops on 80 catchable targets over his last 2 seasons, which is a 13.8% drop rate on those targets. So his hands have to get better. But as we all know, drops isn't a huge concern. It's more or less, can coaching fix his hand catching technique?
Yep. And again, the Jordan Reed comp, he plays inside, outside, and inline. He was incredibly versatile. He was a very good route runner. He tested like a wide receiver athletically. He had the ability to adjust the ball downfield as well. Also, he's going to be a great move tight end. As far as the blocking, you mentioned that he doesn't necessarily. He's athletic enough to position himself, but he doesn't hold blocks well. I noticed he got shed a lot. He's a bit better as a run blocker than a pass blocker, but he still got shut up blocks pretty easy. You mentioned the drops, so he's not the most physical player. He's going to be more of a finesse guy, which I think makes it a bit harder for him to get on the field right out the gate. But yeah, I mean, we saw it with Gesicki last year too. But ultimately, I do think that he is going to be viable, and that we're going to start to replenish the tight end position in fantasy just as people want to get rid of it.
As they say, this is a tight end renaissance that we're having here from the last 3 seasons. Shout out to Matt Kelly for that. This could be what we need to kind of, we're losing Gronk. Ertz is getting older. We lost Walker. We're going to lose Olsen, or we lost Olsen. We're going to lose Walker. Now we get guys like Kittle and Howard, and then these prospects to go along with the guys that are still there.
Evan Ingram's had a good couple years. George, so, and then you got this class coming in also. I mean, you're going to get an infusion of tight ends, and we might not have a big 3. We may have a big 5 or 6.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Depending. All right, moving on to the still good guys that aren't necessarily these next 4 are talked about. They're not necessarily as consensus. You could really stretch this out to about 5 or 6 guys, but whatever. I just broke it up this way. So the still good category, Jace Sternberger is the first guy that I want to talk about. He is our consensus 3.
I love Jace Sternberger. He was the number 1 graded pass catcher out of PFF in this class, which is fantastic to see. He shows well catching through contact again. He may not be the best route runner, but he still positions himself well to make plays. Shows great catch technique, high points the ball well. He's a 3-sport athlete in high school, played football, basketball, and ran track. And shout out to the guys from Expand the Box Store, John and Andy over there. Andy pointed out something that's a pretty underrated take. He's played in 3 separate college offenses in his 4-year career.
Yep.
He had to learn 3 over those past 3 seasons. And he's been productive in 2. The only reason why he didn't take off in Kansas, his first one, is because he was stuck.
Yep.
So very underrated, very smart. May not be the most athletic guy in this top 5, but he just produces. For me, I see a lot of Kyle Rudolph in that. He didn't test extremely well, but he's still an extremely good pass catcher and very solid and polished already.
He is very polished, and you mentioned it. He transferred 3 times, Kansas to a junior college, back to A&M. His parents were also college athletes. His mother was a 2-time basketball All-American, so he's got some pedigree there. He was great, though, at sealing running lanes. I thought athleticism showed up on tape. He was fast enough to run away from guys. I thought his game speed was way better than his combine numbers. He gets off the line very, very well, shows good body positioning, boxing out defenders. He caught 10 touchdowns, so that kind of shows right there he's going to be a red zone threat. Had some shiftiness to him to make people miss. Doesn't often go down from one person. Above average hands. And he ran a complete route tree, playing both inside and in line. So there's a lot to like about Jay Sternberger. The only real downside, again, was just kind of it was the combine. He's not the best pass blocker in the world, but I don't have very many concerns about him either. If he lands well, he could be right up there in conversation with Fant and Hawkinson.
Oh, for sure. He could be a year 2 breakout. The fact that when you move around that much, you don't really get on the field all that often. There's reasons why that people move outside of like suspensions or anything like that. So you just have 1 year of true production, but that true production was fantastic. 17.3 yards per reception, 93rd percentile. That's fantastic. And it shows off that even that he's not this extremely athletic guy, he can still stretch the field and get it done.
Yep. All right. Jay Sternberger is a guy that is catching a ton of hype. I'm going to move to a guy that isn't catching a ton of hype from what I can tell and that I want to be on the hype train for, and that's Kahale Waring.
This guy, when he tweeted out, or not tweeted, when he texted me about him.
I tweeted it too.
And he tweeted it out. I went and I checked out his player profile there because I like athletic tight ends. If you couldn't get it done on the stats or, as from a production standpoint, I want to know why. And then, then I want to see, can these guys, are these guys still athletic? He had 116.2 spark score, which I believe is upper 80th percentile, if not higher. He had 80th percentile speed score, burst score, and catch radius. All things I want to see from a guy that may not have got the hype that he deserves. And speaking of a guy who's played a shit ton of other sports in high school, played water polo, basketball. He ran
water polo.
Country, water polo. And he kind of looks like when you see his picture, he looks like a kid that like he played water polo. He swam as well, played soccer and tennis to go along with football. He didn't play football until his senior year in high school. So there's still a lot left to still learn from him. He'll have to do that well in the NFL, but I expect him to get better each and every year. Obviously, with that, drops are a bit of concerning 11.4% drop rate on catchable targets in his final season. Not great, but again, he's still learning the position, and you get to see the upside because he's still a really good blocker too.
Yep. And him, like Dawson Knox, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, also has some injury concerns for being an athletic guy. I mean, he didn't play a full season in college. His career was 19 games over, I believe, 4 years. So he missed a minimum of 3 games every year. But pros, great speed size combo. Guy is 6'5", 252. There's a lot of size in this tight end class. There's a lot of guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 250, and he's right up there with the rest of them. He runs an advanced route tree. When he was on the field, he did look like he was dominating lower-level competition. It doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but a lot of that was just the ball wasn't going his way. There's a run-first team, more or less, and again, he only played 9 games. Had he played a full 12 or 13, like some of these guys, it would have been right up there with him. He runs an advanced route tree, though, out of the slot. Checks all 3 boxes for slot, outside, and in the line. Tracks the ball well. I thought he showed strong hands when he did actually hold on to the ball. It wasn't getting knocked away easy.
Yep.
Quick off the line. Thought he wasn't a good run blocker, too. He didn't pass block a ton, but I thought he was good enough as a run blocker. Plays the big boy game, though, which is really going to help him in the red zone, which is jump ball, boxing out, playing physical. So Kahale Waring, I think, is a guy that could fall into... I think ideally for him, you'd want a Jonnu Smith or an Ian Thomas landing spot where he's going to be able to sit behind an older tight end for a year or two and kind of be an heir apparent.
Yeah, like you see teams like New Orleans that Brees decides to play, post this year after, he can sit behind Jared Cook, who's getting up there in age. There's a lot of decent landing spots. Land with the Colts. Obviously, you still have to compete with Doyle and Ebron, and I can't see what the contracts are like with both of them. But you're talking about a guy who can probably outplay a lot of the guys out there already in terms of just being able to be a red zone target. He uses his basketball background well, as you mentioned, with that ability to be a box out type of tight end in the red zone. So put him on a team that loves to use their tight ends, and he made Dallas Goedert himself into a role in year 1.
Yeah, even Green Bay behind Jimmy Graham would be another
spot
that's a good for him. I would hate that as a Bears fan, but I think that's probably ideal for him. Next up, we have Irv Smith. He's another Alabama tight end. He was the O.J. Howard era there. So, first off, athletically, he was very, very good at the combine. 4'6", 340. 3-cone lacked a bit, only 7'3", 32.5. Vertical 9'2" broad jump. So you take the good with the bad there. He did produce career 838 yards and 10 touchdowns, 710 of those last year with 7 touchdowns. Strong on his feet, good run blocker. You have to be at Alabama because they run the ball a ton. Looks like a solid route runner. He does not go down easy. He's got to be drugged down. It's a lot like watching Delaney Walker play.
Yes.
His hands appear at least adequate. I thought he changed the direction well enough, even though he put up the bad 3-cone time. some concerns I did have with him, though. He didn't appear to be overly explosive. He wasn't really used outside of the formation a lot, so kind of like TJ Hawkinson, where he wasn't moved around a ton. And he wasn't used a lot in pass blocking, so a few more red flags with Irv Smith, especially from the agility standpoint. But when I watched him play, he had things that Delaney Walker or more recently Ian Thomas had to his game as far as being able to drag defenders and stay strong after the catch.
Yeah, and to go to the point about pass blocking, I'm not huge, of a concern when it comes to that because with these potentially elite tight ends, the amount of times they stay in, to stay into pass block is fairly minimal.
I'm much more concerned about their ability to run block.
Yeah, and they're like to me, he's an underrated run blocker. I mean, he was graded. This is per PFF, 59.9 run blocking grade. I thought he looked better. Again, I'm not an expert, and I still lack the ability to scout blocking because that's not really what we do here. We're more, of a true fantasy guy.
Getting better at it, but still not fantastic.
We try, but he's not 21 years old yet, so he's got a lot of upside to him. He should turn 21 around in August, so right before the season starts. He shows the upside. He was number one in the class in yards per route run. He was fifth in deep pass catches, fourth in slot receptions. He graded out well as a receiver with the grade of 88.3, 16.1 yards per reception in college, was 87th percentile. They know how to use their tight ends. They're, in Alabama. I wish he would have tested a little bit better athletically because I thought he looked a lot more of that on tape. Again, I don't think that's a huge deal. It's just how big's the learning curve. He's slightly undersized. I think at 6'2", 245.
Yeah, that is one of the smaller tight ends in this class.
And it's got some tiny ass arms I put down, 31.5-inch arms,
little bitty T-Rex arms,
9th percentile arms. But again,
T-Rex.
he does show the ability to high point the ball when he can get those T-Rex arms up there.
Yeah, when he's actually got to just lift his body off the ground with rocket launchers because the arms don't go up there. He just keeps them in his chest. Got to have the good vertical.
That's right.
All right, one more guy before we get into the review. Let's talk about Caden Smith out of Stanford. I know that this is probably, I think, the biggest split you and I have on a player is Caden Smith and then Caleb Wilson, who we'll talk about after the break. Those are the two guys that we're really not in sync with. So go ahead and talk about Caden Smith for a bit, and I'll come in with what I like about him.
Yeah, well, I don't hate him. For me, like I said, when it comes to these top five guys, my top five, I wanted to see something more when I go beyond that in terms of athleticism. And he tested poorly, 90.8 bar score, 8th percentile. His three cone was good at 7.08, but he ran a 4.9240, which is pretty terrible. And it shows up on tape because he looks fucking slow off the line. He looks slow when he has to. I think he struggles with fighting through contact at the top of his routes. He does show the ability to fight through them. He's just not consistent enough when he does it. Now, he works really well in zone coverage. He knows how to find the soft spots. He's fantastic when he gets to attack zone coverage up the seam because he knows how to find those soft points. He posted a 15.8 yards per reception, 83rd percentile. Very good. He had a good breakout age of 20.4. To me, it's just he may not be athletically enough to be a top-tier tight end or a second tier. I think he'll be a good number 2 tight end where he'll be able to give you some quality weeks if the number 1 guy above him goes down or he lands in a spot where he is the only guy there and he has to produce somewhat. He does have good hands, even though he posted a 7.8 drop rate on catchable targets.
Yeah. So with Caden Smith, if you're not going to kill it athletically, I need to see other things. I need to see you play intelligently, and I need to see that you can find a way to produce while playing intelligently. Career-wise, in only 2 years and 20 games, which is actually less than 2 full seasons, 70 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's very, very good. This year, 47 receptions, 635 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, not necessarily great in the touchdown department, but receptions, yardage, everything like that is good. When you watch how he plays, and this is the place where tape comes in that stats necessarily can't pick up because you want to know the how. Well, you're not going to get that from looking at combine metrics of Caden Smith. He's big-bodied and physical. He uses his body to box out and create separation. He wins the 50-50 balls. He's got strong hands, like you mentioned. Snags the ball away from his body. He's not a body catcher. He goes up and gets it. He plucks it out of the air. Doesn't let the defenders get to it. He does do all three, both splitting wide, playing in line, and in the slot. But you mentioned it as well, and this is a big thing that stuck out to me. He knows where the coverage is and knows where to settle in to make himself get open. He's not an athletic freak. Sometimes he struggles to find separation, but for zone coverage, and I do believe he can body out in man coverage and find ways to win, and he's going to get better at that with coaching. But for zone coverage, I think he's very, very good at being able to sense that out and know where to sit down and know where to get it. And if he lands at a West Coast scheme that uses a lot of short routes, that relies on receivers sitting down and just picks apart zone coverage, I think he's going to do very, very well.
Yeah, he'll be somebody that will rise up my boards if
landing spot matters.
If the landing spot does fit what I think he does well. But yeah,
we haven't said landing spot matters enough.
We have not.
So
we have not.
Here's your reminder that landing spot matters. All right, let's review some drinks, and then we'll move on to the last half.
Beer review.
All right, what do you think?
This might be my favorite milkshake IPA. So Hopper knows how I feel about milkshakes. I absolutely love them when they're done right. I'm very critical of them because a lot of them can't get the sweetness and the smoothness on the back and on the mouth. Triptych hits it out of the park with this one. The tropical fruits don't stand out a whole lot as it should, which I'm fine with because the sweetness and the smoothness that should be there from a milkshake shows up in this beer. Like I said, I may buy another 4-pack if we still have it at work. I'm going to be hard pressed to not want to drink all of mine, but this is a fantastically well done beer.
All right, so Dan was drinking Grandma's Fruit Salad from Triptych Brewing.
Yes.
Sounds like it's very, very, very good. If I read the description of it and thought it was excellent. Triptych does a lot of things well, but IPA is especially one of them.
Yes.
I'm drinking New Riff Single Barrel Bourbon from New Riff Distillery. They're new on the block. This is their first release that is their own juice, basically. It's a 4-year single barrel. And overall, it's pretty solid for as young as it is. You can tell it's a young bourbon. With young bourbons, typically, the flavors aren't necessarily going to be as blended. They're going to be very, very separate, if you will, and very, very prominent. This absolutely is. And when you smell it, you kind of just basically get ethanol. I mean, it smells like it's hot, and that's not completely wrong. It is hot. It's hot through the mouth. It's hot on the way down. But after that initial heat kind of goes, you start to get overwhelmed with some of the other flavors. You get a bit of brown sugar. There's a little bit of dark cherry, kind of a tartness there, if you will. There's a bit of charred oak that you get in there. It's overall a sweeter bourbon with a subtle burn throughout after a strong burn up front. Overall, it's very, very flavorful, and it makes me excited for what these guys are going to do, down the road when they have stuff that hits the 7-year and maybe even the 12-year mark. I don't know what their plans are, but if they can get some older bourbons out, I'm very excited for that. For this one, I'd probably prefer drinking it in like a Manhattan or an old-fashioned or a cocktail that really features the bourbon as opposed to straight, but it's not a bad straight sip either.
Sounds good. I may have to...
You'll be down here. You can have some.
Try when I'm up there for the live draft.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very, very much to New Riff and Triptych for being on the show. Not that you had a choice. We'll tweet at you guys so that you know you were on the show. If you're nice, you'll retweet us. Maybe you won't. I don't know. Either way, thank you for unwillingly coming on. We're going to move on to the rest of our top 12. Let's go ahead and start with the other person that we're very, very separated on, with Caleb Wilson. I'll go ahead and kick him off. That way we can end on a high note.
Sure.
All right. So Caleb Wilson, first off, a lot of things to like. He's 6'4", 240. It's good size. Not great size, but it's good. It's on the upper end of average. Combine numbers, They were great. 4.56 3-cone. 4.56 40. 4.56 3-cone would be insane.
Fucking insane.
4.56 40. 3-cone was 7.20. That wasn't that great. 29.0 vertical. That wasn't fantastic. 9'5" broad jump was kind of meh. So I guess the 40 time was insane, more accurately, because the other stuff wasn't necessarily fantastic. His dad was a 12th round pick of the Bears in 1992. Currently D-line coach for Philadelphia. So there is some pedigree there. He produced at UCLA. Career stats: 3 years, 24 games, 114 receptions, 1,600 yards, only 5 touchdowns though. 1,600 yards and just 5 touchdowns absolutely stands out to me. Is kind of red zone ineffectiveness, but shows that he's really good between the 20s. 60 receptions, 965 yards, 4 touchdowns came this last season. So 4/5 of his touchdowns came in a little under half of his games. So
yeah, not good.
Not good distribution. He did lead NCAA Division I tight ends in receiving. He is a former quarterback. Now, the reason I have him down lower in my rankings, I didn't think he did the big boy stuff well. I didn't think he boxed out well. I didn't think he went up and got the ball well. That shows up in his touchdown numbers. He doesn't generally break tackles. He goes down on first contact a lot. I didn't think he was a great blocker. I thought he was more of a strict move guy, and I just saw too much Jordan Leggett in his game to really be, when I watched his film, to really be able to buy in as he's this high round juggernaut of a draft pick. Do I think he could be? Sure. But do I think he's a sure thing? As much so as our first 5 guys? Absolutely not. So, Dan, I'll let you go ahead and talk about some of the good things now. I hit on some of them.
You hit on a lot of the good things that he did. He led the class in yards per route run. They used him a lot. In terms of downfield, 16.1 yards per reception, 86th percentile. He posted a 32.3% dominator rating. He was the really lone target there in UCLA. He also played wide receiver, which I think he came into college as that.
It sounds a lot like Jordan Leggett.
Yeah, and then they moved him to tight end because he was a little bit too big. Couple more knocks on him, and I think I may drop him down my board a little bit. I was on the fence about him, especially when we talk about him, Dawson Knox, and Caden Smith. 6 drops on 66 catchable targets, 9.1% drop rate there. He did a horrid breakout age of 22.1. I don't think he's going to be a blocker at the next level. I think he's going to be a strictly move tight end, which hurts his versatility, which hurts him getting onto the field. While this turns into more of a Dan's higher on him than not, I do agree that there's some concerns with him coming into there. But as the league turns into wanting to use these tight ends more so as pure receiving threats, there are some upside to him for that, because he showed that he can be productive as the main option in this offense. I haven't been a big fan of what UCLA has been able to put out recently. So
was that a failed Josh Rosen shot?
Yeah, that's a failed Josh Rosen shot. But outside of that, he does have upside. He's fast. He can work the seam well, which I think his role is going to be. I'm not surprised you had him lower on your list. You don't like your pass catching options to be that one dimensional. So he may or may not be something in the NFL. I don't know if any spot matters more or much for him, is that he needs to get better as a blocker. Mm-hmm. But I think if he gets an opportunity to be the main pass catcher, or at least be a top 3 target on his offense, there is some upside to him there.
It just reminds me so much of not even just Jordan Leggett, but Bucky Hodges too.
Oh, fucking Bucky Hodges,
who produced at the college
liked them
level.
A little bit too. Oh, I liked them a little bit too.
I liked Bucky Hodges too, but looking back on that, there were just a lot of glaring things to his game, and I'm not willing to make that mistake twice, if you will, because he was a very, very good move guy who didn't have some of the other traits that you needed. He was also a former wide receiver. So
yeah, I think he was also smaller than Caleb Wilson. At least with Caleb Wilson, he does have okay size.
I thought Hodges was bigger. Hold on, I'm going to vet this now.
Yeah. Anyways,
keep talking for a minute. Find more things to say about Caleb Wilson.
some more things about him. He looked kind of awkward when he tries to make his cuts. He rounds them out too much, but most tight ends don't have that type of ability to do that.
Hodges is bigger. Hodges is 6'6", 257.
Okay, he was bigger. Was Evan Ingram was the super tiny one from that class? Then it must have been.
Yeah, I think Evan Ingram was 6'2".
Like he was a true wide receiver that played move tight end.
Yeah, I think it was Evan Ingram that was smaller from that class. Yeah, Evan Ingram was 6'3". So
anyway,
now that we've gotten down that rabbit hole,
right?
Just for grins, let me look up Jordan Leggett real quick.
Should we move on to Dawson Knox? Did you look that up?
Yeah, I did look it up. Jordan Leggett, by the way, 6'5", 258. Was a bit slower on the 40, but other than that, burst, agility, everything else was, right in line with
I don't think we were big fans on him. I think we saw what...
Well, Leggett was kind of my mistake.
True.
All right.
Fair point.
Moving on, let's get the demons of Jordan Leggett and Bucky Hodges out of here.
Please.
Moving on to Dawson Knox. So Dawson Knox, his tape is good. Productivity was not. He was also hurt a lot. In 3 years, he played just 17 games, caught 39 balls for 605 yards. Last year, just 9, only 15 receptions. Now, he did split time with 3 NFL caliber wide receivers and not an NFL caliber quarterback. So that's going to hurt you some.
Yep.
I mean, I can't really fault anybody for not outproducing A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and DeMarcus Lodge.
And then you throw in from 2017, their running back.
Oh, Wilkins.
Drafted.
Jordan Wilkins.
So there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for him to shine.
Actually, in fact, 0 full seasons, 0 seasons over 25 receptions, 0 career touchdowns. But on the good side, he played at the slot, in line, and H-back, which is something you didn't see a whole lot this year. He appears to have a quick release and good speed to his routes. He runs a multitude of routes as a pass catcher. Well, I don't know why I felt the need to say as a pass catcher. Blockers usually don't run routes, but you get it.
Yeah.
And he showed really good body positioning inside of defenders. I thought the hands were just average. He did have some drops and some double catches. I thought he struggled to adjust the throws that weren't right on the number, and he was a bit of a liability as a blocker, so I don't know how much is there at the next level, but ultimately I do see a world where Dawson Knox did show enough good traits to where he could develop into something later on.
So when I talk about guys I want to take chances on who prove to be athletic, Dawson Knox is at the top of that list because he tested pretty well. 109.9 sparks for his 63rd percentile. He ran at 4.64 40, showed a good burst score of 121.4, hit a nice 3-cone of 7.12 and a short shuttle of 4.27, and just overall 70th plus percentile throughout his playerprofiler.com page, which is funny because it shows a random picture of a black guy, and Dawson Knox looks like the white goofy, like the white guy at that party.
Does it really?
Yeah, like if you go to his combine page on the NFL.com draft tracker, he looks like a goofy white guy from a comedy film.
He is a goofy white guy from a comedy film. I mean, who?
I don't know what they did there, but anyways, so this is kind of where I try to struggle. What's that?
Who is that?
I have no fucking clue who that is. Anyways, he did post PFS third best run blocking grade of 75.3. Like I said, I'm not a top notch run blocking scout, so I'm not going to speak on that. In his final season, though, as their pass catcher, or while he's pass catching, 18.9 yards per reception, which is incredible. So there is upside to him there. He had 4 drops and 62 catch on his career. It's of 62, 6.5% drop rate, which again can be fixed up at the next level. I think he is the one that's a true dart throw. I think he could step in and be that of a hybrid fullback tight end, with snaps as an H-back. So there is some upside to him there. And it's just more or less, can he take his athletic traits and can that convert into a passable pass catching tight end?
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
So for those of you on YouTube, you're about to get a treat to see what we were laughing at here. I went ahead and set this up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So this, in between Dan and I's face, and not very well positioned because I'm doing this on the fly, is what Dawson Knox actually looks like. This is what Player Profiler has Dawson Knox looking like. So as you can see, not really at all the same thing.
This is like when a white person's trying to create a much tanner version of themselves on the My Creator profile or on the My Create player on any of the sports games out there, because the hair's relatively crazy. It's just that, like, they went from like 3 skin tone to 4 skin tone, or however it's set up in that game. So
Yeah,
love
I
it.
don't know how that worked. Speaking of guys that might be creative players, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead just because that works as a segue. Drew Sample,
Perfect.
who sounds like just the default name for a creative player on a version of Madden.
Yes, very much so.
So, Drew Sample, we'll talk about him mostly because we needed to put 12 people on this show. He played out of Washington, 6'5", 255. So, again, kind of fits your prototypical tight end size for this class. 4.71 40, 7.153 cone. Not bad, not bad. He's great at sealing holes for the run. He's an adept pass blocker with length who I think recovers very, very well. He does run some slot, mostly crossing and out routes, though, so he doesn't have a great route tree. There isn't anything wrong with his hands. I thought he looked slow, though. I thought he lacked the ability to get downfield on seam routes. He wasn't used in the red zone. Low college productivity. Lacked quick twitch. I do think he's drafted. I think he's drafted as a blocker.
He posted the highest run blocking grade per PFF of 82.3. He's a very limited pass catcher. I believe in his only good season, which is last season, 25 catches, 252 yards, 3 touchdowns. But he had 1 drop on 61 total targets in college, which is pretty good to get from your blocking tight end that you're going to likely use as your number 2. You're looking at 12 formation, 13 formations where you got multiple tight ends out there. That's where I think his floor is. I don't see a whole lot of ceiling to him, even though he did test well. He did speak on his numbers. I just think he's going to be like he's going to have a career in the NFL as a strict run or as a strict blocking tight end who could give you some pass catching upside.
Well, I agree with that.
Not a lot though.
I agree with that completely. Keeping it on the blocking tight end scale, let's move double back now to where we should have gone to a guy who tested very, very well athletically, but he played at LSU, and we say this about LSU every year. They have a really, really weird way of making their skill players not relevant, and that's Foster Moreau.
This guy, like, his best comparable is Luke Wilson, who we all know is extremely athletic blocking tight end, and that's what Foster Moreau is.
Yep.
4.66 40. He had a nice 80th plus percentile in all of his scores here: speed, burst, agility, and even catch radius. It gets better as you go along for him. He was just underutilized. So he's going to come into the league as one of the better blocking tight ends overall. He may see the field early on pass catching downs because he's a good blocking tight end for pass catching.
He was. He had great footwork as a pass blocker. It jumped out.
Yeah, and that still shows up on the run blocking. It's just for him is all his athletic because the pass catching is not there. There's no breakout age for him because he hasn't fucking broken out yet. So he is pretty much a more athletic Drew Sample. These guys should see the field a lot like we had in Durham Scythe and then the other blocking tight end from Stanford last year.
The one that went to the Texans, because there's a blocking tight end.
There's one that went to Miami, the one that went to Texans.
Yeah, Durham Smythe went to Miami, but yeah. Either way. I do think Foster Moreau has the athleticism to develop into a pass catcher if they tried to use it, but it's going to be a Mercedes Lewis type of deal where I don't think he's ever going to. He might have the athleticism too. He's not as huge as Mercedes Lewis is.
No.
But he's a very, very good blocker. He's an above average blocker. He's going to find a role on an NFL team. But there's people hyping him up as a fantasy dynasty option. And even with the athletic traits, I just don't see that being his role.
I think because of his athletic upside, I think that's why people think that. They see what George Kittle was 2 years ago. This no production, highly athletic, that just needs an opportunity. So they see that in Foster Moreau, and I don't see it happening. He didn't test as well as Kittle, which is not hard to do because Kittle tested one of the best we've ever seen from the tight end position. I think that's why he's getting that hype, though, is that he's an underutilized tight end who tested athletically crazy that just needs an opportunity to show that he can be more than just a blocker.
That's very, very true. Kittle, though, even though the numbers are, I guess, are kind of similar. It was 52, 629, and 6 for Moreau's career, 48, 737, and 10 for Kittle. So similar as far as middling production goes. But Kittle, you at least saw run routes. You saw things with his tape that kind of tipped at least me or us or whatever to say, hey, I think there's something here more so than just a blocker. Whereas Foster Moreau, I didn't necessarily get that from his tape a whole lot.
And that might be the product of LSU as a whole.
It very well could be.
They don't know how to use their...
That's the challenge with evaluating LSU prospects that we run into every single year, is that they don't use them.
Besides running backs.
Aside from running backs.
Don't fucking abuse their running backs. Because their receivers always kind of show up on tape. Like, I saw it this year when I was watching his tape.
They do.
Foster's tape.
Rest in peace, Malachi Dupree.
Yeah, right.
All right. Moving along, we've got 2 guys left to talk about to wrap up this draft class. Josh Oliver, another small school guy. Actually, the first game I watched of his was facing Kahale Waring.
Yes. 16 contested catches in 2019 was led the class. Again, like usual, he tested well. A lot of these tight ends that are on lower of our list, the reason why they're up here is because they tested well. So there's that athletic upside. 113 sparks were 4.63 40, 34 vert, 117 broad, and a 7.213 cone, which isn't great, but it's still passable. And 22 on the bench. So there's that athletic upside. It was the way that he was used, which stood out to me more, because he was used on the outside. And, as an outside receiver, he was used as a slot receiver, as an inline wide tight end, and even saw plays as them using him in a jet sweep type of motion. The fact that his quarterback had hungry heights for him, which means he saw a lot of double coverage, and he was able to at least make plays while that. Mm-hmm. He was drafted as a edge linebacker, but moved to tight end out of high school because of all the injuries that San Jose State had, early on in his career. So, or not injuries to tight ends that had to move over during his freshman season. So he's still redefining his game. He still needs work. There is upside to him, though.
Yeah, I thought I saw him, and I also thought Jordan Reed here. He just looks super quick off the line. He was, like you mentioned, used all over the place. He knows how to put his body between defenders and the ball. He extends arms and catches away from his body. So the things you want to see a tight end do. He uses his arms. He boxes out guys. He shows balance and elusiveness after the catch. O.J. Howard, I think, is another good comp for him. Hands aren't necessarily strong per se, but there was nothing wrong with him. He didn't have a ton of drops. It's just, he wasn't holding the balls while the defenders were trying to rip them out or anything like that. He does kind of look a little foolish run blocking. He's not the best at that. He was a better pass blocker, but still wasn't fantastic. Just doesn't really know where to sit in the zone either. So it's like the anti-Caden Smith when it comes to route running. But athletically, I thought he was fantastic. He's another guy that probably needs to go behind somebody for a year or two in order to learn it. But I think that the receiving traits and everything are absolutely there. It's the other, and that's what you want for fantasy. It's the other things that the tight end does that I think that he's going to have to develop.
There's one thing I saw on his tape. I don't know if you saw it too. I'm kind of hoping you did. When he runs his routes, his arms tend to just fucking flail everywhere.
Yep, I did notice that.
I don't know what it is, but he looks fucking goofy.
He's like a helicopter.
It's like, I mean, his arms aren't like massively long. Like I got no note about his arm length, so it's not like that's insane. But like he looks like he doesn't know what to do with his arms.
Just what do I do with my hands?
Like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He looks so goofy.
Visually, it's going on here.
It just
again, YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. Don't think I said that at the beginning of the episode. Hey, now's a good time for a break. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Untapped. Beerfield FF. YouTube and Facebook, Beerfield Fantasy Football. On to Elise Mack. I don't. This was also, to me, very, very much, okay, we've got to rank 12 guys, so I guess Elise Mack. He's another one that I've heard some rumblings about, but And the combine was average. I thought. Didn't think he did anything special there. I didn't think he screwed anything up. Productivity was, well, average. Only 4 touchdowns, just 716 yards on his career. Thought he looked more athletic than some of the numbers suggested. Good release. He showed a bit of speed. Definitely some jump ball ability. Good concentration. There was one catch where he's just getting absolutely cross-bodied and still managed to hold on. But mediocre blocker. I thought that the route running could use some polishing. I thought that the athleticism wasn't necessarily, standout or insane or anything like that.
I mean, he tested well. 116.7, 79th percentile spark score. He had a nice speed and burst score. Because of that, I think he ran a 4.6, 4.40. I'm sorry, 4.740. 36-inch vert, 120 broad, and a 4.34 short shuttle. They're all good numbers. He's a horrible blocker. He's basically a worse Evan Ingram. And the fact that he couldn't even produce as just a strictly pass catching tight end, because PFF graded him a run blocking of 46. That's fucking terrible. 10 drops and 110 total targets, which, 11% drop rate on that. So it's, I don't know what he's going to be at the next level. I think that's where my issue is that he's got the athleticism to be something more, but he's a true project, because he shows up as a pass catcher, but he has hands issues. He's terrible blockers, but he's got the athleticism and frame to do it. Just whether or not he can get to that point.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, that's, I believe, all we have for tight ends. I will throw the rankings graphic up on the screen here real quick and read off the consensus rankings. So, after all that talk, we are consensus up through number 3. So that's TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Jay Sternberger. Kahale Warring comes in consensus 4, Irv Smith consensus 5. That was a tiebreaker. Overall, our top 5 are the same. They're just in a slight. We just have Warring and Smith flip-flopped.
Yep.
So, again, Hawkinson, Fant, Sternberger are pretty much your sure things. Beyond that, you got a Waring or Smith, which are next to a sure thing. And then after that, you get to Caleb Wilson, Caden Smith, Dawson Knox, Josh Oliver, who I think all could have productive NFL careers. You just might not see it right off the gate. You got Foster Moreau, Alize Mack, and Drew Sample after that. 2 blocking tight ends and one guy that, he's there. So...
There are things.
Yeah, there are things there. That's all we got for the NFL draft. Again, we'll be doing a live episode during the first round of the draft, so be sure to tune in. Lots of drinking. We'll do a drinking game. Dan and I will probably each have a mock draft that we try to get things right on and pretend to know things as we talk about offensive players. We're there for the offensive players, but we'll try to give some recaps on defensive players, how they fit, offensive linemen, laugh when somebody pulls a Baltimore Ravens and just completely reaches for people that shouldn't be reached for.
It's going to be the Giants when they take Daniel Jones.
I hope they take Daniel Jones because
it's going to happen.
I will break again. I will break like when the Bears drafted Trubisky, which in hindsight might have been a little bit of an overreaction.
Yeah, but you were upset. I'm just going to laugh at the Giants.
I was upset.
I'm not upset at all. I'll just laugh.
All right. As we wrap this up, we spent the last 4 to 5 weeks, I'm not going to count right now, I think it was 5, talking about tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, every rookie in this class that we thought was worth talking about. Obviously, there will be people drafted. We'll give you that recap next week when we do our draft recap episode. Let's start with quarterback, alternating on and off. Who are you targeting, and who are you staying away from, or who are you paying attention to have a good landing spot, and who are you hoping just gets buried? Let's put it that way.
All right.
I'm going to start at quarterback. I want Will Greer to land someplace good. I think he's underhyped. I think he deserves good things. I want Daniel Jones to be completely buried because I don't think he should be an NFL starter.
Yes, and I love Will Greer. We both talked about that in a QB episode. So go back and listen to that if you want our thoughts on Will Greer. I think he'll be the 3rd best, if not 2nd best, in this class when it's all said and done. But mine is obviously Kyler Murray because he's the funnest guy to watch on tape. He makes plays that shouldn't happen, and I want him to land in Arizona because I want him to be with a coach that wants to continue to change how the NFL is being played on the offensive side of the football. And of course, my most hype guy to likely bust is going to be Daniel Jones because he's garbage.
He is garbage. At running back, again, just same thoughts here. Miles Sanders, I think, is probably the best running back in this class. I think that he shows dual threat ability. And in a shallow running back class, I think he's your most sure thing. So I want him to land well. Devin Singletary can go the way of like Kalen Ballage and just get the hell out of Dodge. I don't think he was worth the early season hype. I don't think that there's anything on his tape to like. I am anti Devin Singletary.
Yeah. I put Miles Sanders down again for my as a guy that I want to grab. He's someone that he's the one running back I'll likely reach for. I almost put Ronnie Anderson down because his tape is incredible when he's healthy. But we've talked enough about these guys. I would have put Devin Singletary down as my most likely to bust, but his hype has really died down since the combine, as most of draft Twitter has fallen off of him. David Montgomery, I put him down mainly because I'm not sure where his draft capital is going to be. You've heard day 2. He was a day 1 guy before the combine. That went away after a poor combine showing. Now it's, is he a day 2 guy? Is he a day 3 guy now? He doesn't have the athletic traits. That's why I knocked him down quite a bit because I think his draft capital got hurt the most. I still like him. I'm a little bit more worried on if he lands and gets buried, he might be done.
Yep. Other guys I want to certify and put my flag on: James Williams, Myles Gaskin, Alex Barnes, and Darrell Henderson. Kind of the mid-tier of our upper part of rankings. All right. For wide receiver, I am endorsing my favorite grinder, Stanley Morgan Jr. I caught on to Stanley Morgan Jr. his sophomore year. I've wanted him to do well ever since. He tested well at the combine. I think he has a position. I love A.J. Brown. I love N'Keal Harry. I think that there's a sure thing that they're going to land well. I want Stanley Morgan Jr. to land well, though. And the guy that I want to slide and I don't want to land well is DK Metcalf. I think that he's going to be a bust, and if the Ravens draft him, I'm going to laugh my ass off.
I did put down Stanley Morgan Jr. I changed it to Akeem Butler because I know that you're going to put Stanley Morgan Jr. down, and I wanted to get some more love to Akeem Butler.
He doesn't get enough.
He doesn't, and no, you're absolutely right. He does not get enough. I cannot wait to see the most aggressive runner from this wide receiver class do well in the pros. But as for Akeem Butler, his tape was the best. I absolutely love his highlight reel. I am fully on board with his concerns. He could bust. He is would have been part of my he could bust because of what he cannot do and the fact of the late breakout age. But I want Akeem Butler to succeed, and I think he will. I think he could be a first round drafted wide receiver because the hype is starting to fly off the ceiling right now. And as for DK Metcalf, again, I put him down because he is easily the top rated receiver who's likely to bust. I don't see who else you can put there ahead of him.
Yeah, I don't either. Other guys I'm paying attention to that I would like to take this time to endorse: Andy Isabella, David Sills, and Hollywood Brown from me. Also, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
I think he'll do well, but that's just me.
I think he will too. All right, and at tight end, I'm going to put T.J. Hawkinson down as the guy I'm most interested in because also going to throw some love to Kahale Warring, Jay Sternberger, and then Caleb Wilson is going to be the guy that I think is going to slip and get buried, that has been catching a lot of hype. I don't want to talk about the same one you had down, even though I just wrote that down while we were doing the show. I think that he has all the traits of a good move tight end, but we've seen that fail at the NFL level because of the other things the team needs their tight ends to do that he can't. So unless he comes in and is absolutely elite at those move tight end traits, they're not going to put up with it.
Yeah, I of course put T.J. Hawkinson down again because he's the most complete tight end in this class. The guy that Hopper did put down that he just changed to Caleb Wilson, I put down Irv Smith Jr. This was almost no fan, mainly because we've seen tight ends who have tested extremely well, found ways to struggle, in the NFL. But I think Fant's a good enough blocker to not be put down. So I did change mine to Irv Smith Jr., who I still think is a good run blocker and just a good blocker overall. But he's young. He could get buried onto a roster that may not see him, do anything for the first couple years. And there are some legit concerns. He should have tested better than I thought he would have at the combine. And his size a little bit, but not too much. Just because he's one of the more hyper guys, I can't put Fant and Hawkinson as the guy who could bust. I had to put Smith down.
Yep. All right, that's all we got for today. We will be back with you all on Thursday as we do our live stream for the first round of the NFL draft. I believe Dan's coming down to St. Louis with me, so that'll be live from my living room for the third consecutive year. We will have some guests popping in and out, or we're going to try to make that actually work this year. We'll be playing some games with you, doing some mock draft, giving some analysis, just kind of chilling out and having a good time. As I did not say at the beginning of the show, you can follow the show at BeerFueledFF on Twitter, Instagram, and on tap. Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube and Facebook. Leave us some comments on YouTube. Throw us a like. Subscribe to the channel. iTunes, Spotify, wherever podcasts are found. We also exist there. Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, etc., etc.
Yes.
Simulcast on FM radio. Not really, but that would be cool.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the continued support. We'll have a full draft recap episode for you next week in our normal time slot, in addition to the bonus first round coverage, where we'll recap all 7 rounds, who went where, or who notable went where. We won't talk about everybody that went where, who rose, who fell, and then some risers, sliders in our rankings. Maybe a bit of a longer one also, as we probably recap and redo all of our rankings based on landing spot. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's, as always, joined by
At 30 BFF with 2 F's.
All right, and we will catch you guys next time.
Next time.
Beerfield.
Bye.
Fantasy football. See ya.
Bye.
Music.